Hey guys, in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can capture pictures and save them into the database. First of all, let me explain to you the previous video I made. It was about capturing pictures and save them into the database. So the logic of this project was once you launch your software, you start streaming, you can go to capture. Now you can see I'm able to capture the picture if you look at my right hand side, and then you can save them. But this time here, you're just going to save it into the computer. You have to specify a location where you can, for instance, save a picture. Just going to, okay. So this picture that I just managed to save here, it is saved into my computer, into the location inside my computer. But what if I wanted to make a video, or I wanted to make a software, an application that capture pictures and save them into the database of your project? So this is what this video will be about. But if you look at the previous interface, there was no these two uh, these two tools here. This one is just a combo box, and the other one is the text box, obviously with two different uh, text box. And I had to add some buttons, the browser button, the save into the database button, and the search button. So these are basically the three different buttons that I just added. And obviously, as you can see, I wanted to save 4 buttons, so I've added delete, search, save, browse buttons for us to be able to capture pictures and save them into the database. So for this project, I'm going to show you two methods or two ways of doing that. But first of all, let me start with the first way of saving the database, of saving the pictures into the database. So because we are talking about database, we have to use a database management system. And for this case, I've used Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So I just created a database which I named as webcam. So this is the name of my database. And inside this database, I created two different tables. Why? Because remember, I told you that I'm going to explain to you two different ways of saving pictures into your database. That is the reason why I created tables. I created two tables inside this very same database, and then I'm going to explain each way how to use these two different tables. So as for the first table, let me just go to design mode. Inside this table, I created three different columns. There is ID columns, and the data type of that ID I choose is to be integer, which means that it is only going to allow numbers to be entered into this row here, and it must not accept any null value here. So it has to be filled with the information inside. Otherwise, it's gonna throw an exception. And the second column, it is about the name. And the data type of that column is nvarchar 50, but you can obviously change as you want. You can even put it nvarchar maximum. And the third column, it's about image, because remember, we are in this video explaining how you can save the image into the database. And for the data type of this particular way of saving pictures into the database, I left it as nvarchar maximum. So I'm going to explain to you as we go through this video why I left it as nvarchar maximum. But remember, I said I'm going to explain two different ways of saving videos. With this first method, I'm going to save only the location of that photo into the database, and the photo itself will be saved in one of the folder into my computer. So I think now we got the diagram of this software how it's going to work. Let's now go to implement it. Because we need to save the information, or we need to save the pictures into the database, I created a button which I named Save into the Database. All right. So the idea is that if I want to save someone's information into the database, I have to get the ID of that person, his name, and his picture. Then I will click on save, and those informations will be saved into the database. That is the reason why we can see here once the connection is opened, and then here I have to specify the format of the picture. So this CMD just stands for combo box here, this combo box here. So I name it as a CMD, okay, CMD. So what is going to happen is that the information that will appear, that is going to be entered into the combo box, will be uh, I'm going to put them together with the format of the picture, because as we know, JPG is the format of a picture. All right. So for instance, if it's the first image is going to be 1.jpg, that is the identification of that picture into the database. And F location is obviously the location. Which location? Remember, I'm talking in this video. I'm explaining how to capture pictures and to save them into the database. But we're going to save the picture itself into the folder in our computer, and the location of that picture will be saved into the database. And then here we have to determine the path where we will be saving the location of that picture into the database. And we're going to save this picture or the location of that picture into the database. And this is the table that we're going to save our picture, and the ID of the picture, the name of that person, and obviously his picture. So this is the table. Let me open my SQL Server. So as you can see, is this table here, T-ID. This is the table we're going to be saving the ID, the image, and the location of the picture into the database. All right. And then obviously you can see we're going to save the ID and the name and the path or the location into the database. Okay, so here we're going to take the path that will come from the picture capture. Which picture capture I'm referring to? I'm referring to this picture box here. So this picture capture is the one that will help us to get the location of that picture to save it into the database. All right. So this is the picture box that we're going to make use of. Let me carry on explaining the code. So I think now it should be fine. And obviously, after we're done saving the informations into the database, we get this message that says data saved successfully. And then we have to clear our zone so that you can be able to make use of the same form again in case we need to add some informations. But since we are talking about database, here I've just explained the saving button, how it works. But since we are talking about database, that database has to be used. And for database to be used, I must make use of SQL connection. Okay, sorry, for connection string I wanted to say I have to make use of connection string. So this is the connection string that I just created for us to be able to save the pictures that we captured and save them into the database. So now that the connection string have been created, and also we have code that helps us to save the informations into the database. Okay, now that we're done with the code, I can now start. I'm going to just launch the software. Then let's say ID of this person is 1 and the name of this person is Diego. I'm going to click on stream, and then I come to capture. You can see the picture has been captured. Let me now go try to save it into the database. You can see the message says that data saved successfully. Then I'm going to click on OK. So you can see that this picture has been saved. But let's try to check if we just managed to save our pictures. I'm going to launch my Visual Studio. I'm going to launch my Microsoft SQL Management Studio. Let me try to refresh because that's what I should do. And then I'm going to open this table to see if we just managed to save this picture. You can see, guys, so we just managed to save the picture into the database. Remember, the ID of that picture was 1 and the name of that person was Diego. And then we save the location of that picture into our database. So this is the location or the path that we just save into the database. So this method is going to prevent you from using a lot of space into the database. I'm going to explain when I'm talking about the space. I'm going to explain that with the second method that I'm gonna explain to you. But this first method is fine because it's going to save only the path here, the path into the path or the location into your database, and then the picture itself will be saved in one of the folder. So look at here. So the location says that this picture has been saved into the project, into the folder named project slash web camera slash images. So let's go into my computer. I'm going to go into my computer. I'm going to local disk C, project, and then web camera, and then images. As you can see, guys, so this is just the face picture that we just created, and the path or the location of that picture is this one, and it really match with the location that we just created into the database here. So this first method prevents us from having to save the images into the database, because these images, if you are not saving them using this method, they are going to use most of the space. So now let's try to search the picture just that we just saved into the database. So I'll say 1. So this is the ID of that picture. And once you click on search, you can see that we are now able to pull out the picture that we just saved into the database and to display them on our form. So let me now explain to you the searching button or the code that I put inside the searching button. So this is the searching button here. So this is the first method. This is how you go for with the first method, saving the pictures, only the location or the path of that picture into the database, and then saving the picture itself in your local folder into your computer. So the second method that we're going to use now to save our pictures into the database, it's about saving the picture straight away. Remember previously we kind of split things. We save the picture into the folder and then only the path or the location into the database. But this time around, we're going to save what we call BLOB. BLOB stands for binary large object. That means that we're going to save the binary object into our database. And let me go on putting code so we can be able to save the picture. That is going to be the second method. So let me go to save into the database button. I'm just going to comment this code here because this code that I created here was for the first method. Let me just comment it, and then I'm going to uncomment because, as I said, I already created this code here just to make the video a bit short. So I'm just going to uncomment. So this method that I'm using here, it's about saving the binary object into database. So now it's underlying this AMG location. Why? Because this is a variable that we just used without having to declare them. That means that we're supposed to declare this variable first of all. The variable is already here. I already declared it, but I just commented it to make things a bit easier. So I'm going to uncomment this variable, the one that I just created. And then let me get back to the save into the database button, then explain to you how it's going to work. So here we are making use of the bytes, which is going to convert the image into a binary value. So all this line here, it's about converting our picture into a binary object which we can save. So since it's about database, we have to open it. So this is the code that has, this is the line for connection, for opening our connection string, and then this is the query specifying where we're going to save our picture into the database. So I'm gonna use this table here. Remember, right at the beginning of this video, I spoke about two different tables which I created. So the table t-id2 is the one that is going to help us to save the let me just try to open it. Okay, so this table is going to help us to save the picture as binary object. So when it comes to the diagram or the structure of this database, it is about id, and we're going to declare the data type of that id as integer, and the name, the column name for this database, it is nvarchar50. And when it comes to the picture, remember with the previous method we declared picture as nvarchar maximum, but this time around, since we are in need of saving the binary object into our database, we're not going to make use of nvarchar or numeric or nvarchar50 or integer or many or nvarchar or text, but we have to specify it. Data type of this image has to be image. That is the only data type that can help us to save image as a binary object. So keep this in mind. It's not nvarchar, but it's image as data type. I can close it. Okay, let me get back to Visual Studio. So this is the code that helps us to save the picture as binary into our database. But it's something that we need to know, that for you to be able to save the picture into database, you must make use of the namespace. This is the namespace. When you launch your Visual Studio, you don't find this namespace inside, so which means you have to declare it. It's using space system.io, and then you close it with a semicolon. Without making use of this namespace, you will never be able to save the picture or photos into the database. Okay, let me just get back to, actually I was talking about saving button. So this is the code that helps us to save the data, to save the picture, and also we have to be able to search those pictures into the database. So this one was for the first method. I'm just going to comment it, but let me now uncomment or highlight the code that will help us to search the information or the picture from the database when we have declared those picture as binary object. So this is the code that helps us to search through database and to display the pictures as binary onto our screen or on our phone. Okay, I think that should be fine. Let me try to launch the software. All right, so ID, I would say let's say 2 for instance, and the name I'll say Damona. This is the name of that person. So let me try to browse. By the way, I'm going to explain the shame, the browsing button is not working. So I wanted to browse to get picture from my local database or from my computer and then use them, but this button, I just forget to put some code here. Don't worry, let me get back to the form. I guess I already created a code that helps us to pull out the pictures from our computer. There we go. So the code was there. Just going to uncomment it. This is the code that will help us to browse. Now that I managed to uncomment it, I can now launch my software. Okay, let me start, and I'll give it an ID. Let's say 2, and the name I wanted to say Damon. Let me now browse. Okay, we can see the dialog box is open. Let me try to choose one of the picture. I'll choose this one. There we go. You can see now we managed to browse and to pull out the picture from our computer, and then it's now displayed onto our picture box. Then we can save it into our database. You can see it's saved, which means that it's fine. But now we managed to save it. We have also to check if we just really save that picture into our database. So let me try to launch my my SQL Server. So this is the table that we just made use of, but I have to refresh it first. Okay, then let me try to open to see if we manage to definitely you can see here. So we just managed to save an image into our database. Remember the ID of that image was 2 and the name of that person was Damona, and this is obviously the binary data or the binary object that we just saved. So this method, this way of saving the picture, I want to commend you. Why? Because it takes a lot of space. It only says binary data, but on the background there's a lot of going on here. Let me actually show you the real data that are inside this row, inside this column here, which really shows that this method takes a lot of space. I'm gonna come here, then I'm going to open Server Explorer. Which connection? This one, I think. Let me try to expand it. Table. No, this is not the one actually. I think this should be this one. Okay, actually, let me just try to connect. So I'm going to connect. Then I come to select the database. I want to check the information in its web camera. I go to OK. Okay, this one is open. Just going to explain this server here. Table, it's this one. Let me try to open table definition. No, let me show the data table of this table. So we're going to see the reason why I don't recommend this method, because it takes a lot of space. So we can see the ID is here, the name is here, but when it comes to image, let's now see how long the informations are inside this row. Can you see all these numbers here? All these digits, they are inside. Let me go to the last one. Actually, okay, I can just do this. Try to copy them. Then I'm going to close. Let me get back to text editor. Go to the last line. If I paste it, look at all these digits here, all this number. In total, there are thousands. I just take few, but in total, there are thousands. So all these informations, they are saved into your database here, but here it only says binary data. But in reality, there's a lot of going on here, as I say. That is the reason why it is called binary large object. And if you keep on saving these kind of informations into the database, especially if you are using the free version of Microsoft SQL Server, it's not gonna get you time for that database to get full. So to my side, I want to commend you to use this method, this second method here, because unless you are using the junior version of SQL Server, but if it's a free version for evaluation purpose, I want to recommend you to use this second method, because it is just going to get your database full quick. Thanks a lot, guys. If you liked this video, please, I would ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is the only way you're going to encourage me to do more in this. And please don't forget to turn on your notification bell on, so that next time if I drop a video, you're going to be alerted. Bye. See you in the next video.